She's stirring a pot of chicken noodle soup at 38 weeks pregnant, and the man she lives with is standing 3 feet away trying to figure out if his baby mother is a witch. Not metaphorically. Literally. Beads on her wrist, altar in the back room, candles doing that low smoky thing, and a bracelet she just casually mentioned she's been wearing for 10 years. And she's smiling. That's the part. She's smiling like this is a normal Tuesday. Real quick before this thing spirals. If you catch receipts the way we do, tap in, ring the bell, and lock in because the second half of his stream has a clip nobody's talking about yet, and it changes the whole read. The camera never left the couch. The paper trail did. Here's the surface of it. Blueface, government named Johnathan Michael Porter, walks back into a house he shares with Nevaeh Akira, the mother of his youngest son Superior, after a weekend away. She's mid-nesting, mid-tea, mid-something else. And within about 20 minutes of him being back on that couch, 3 separate things happen. She casually confirms she practices Yoruba or IFA, which most of the chat is calling voodoo because that's the easy word. She tells him, on camera, on a live stream, that she had her Babaloa and her witch sister put certain people in a pot, and then the two of them get into a full-on argument over a resurfaced clip where he's allegedly whispering she won't leave to somebody who is not her. That's the surface. The seam is underneath it. Before we crack the first pass, one more layer of context the surface skipped. The stream in question ran on Kick under the handle tied to Nevaeh's channel, not Johnathan's, meaning the monetization split, the moderator log, and the archived VOD sit under her account per Kick's creator terms. The residence itself, per property records surfaced in past all-hip-hop reporting on the Porter household, is inside Los Angeles County, the same jurisdiction that already holds 2 open family court matters connected to Johnathan across separate case captions. And the witch sister she references by voice, never by government name, appears in 3 of Nevaeh's older TikTok captures preserved on archive.today, always framed as the person who put her on to the practice a decade ago. Different who? Different where? Same living room. The brief keeps opening. Let's slow walk this because everybody clipping it is running with the wrong headline. The clip everybody's sharing, the one lighting up TikTok and the reply guys under say cheese, is being captioned Blueface Court saying SHE won't leave about Krizoon Rock. That's the framing. That's the caption. That's the thumbnail energy. Watch the actual stream and it doesn't say that. Neveah, 38 weeks pregnant, sitting on a couch with a raspberry leaf tea, plays the clip for him with the background music on. He listens. He listens again. He asks for the VOD with the audio stripped. She keeps insisting. He finally gets somebody in the chat to send the cleaner audio. And what he actually says, verbatim, according to the cleaner pool, is wake your game up before you F, your name up, school crib. Not she won't leave. Not Krizoon. Not anybody. A bar. A throwaway bar. His freestyling into the camera the way he freestyles into every camera he's ever been in front of. And Nevaeh, and this is the part that lands, sits there, watches the second pull, and says the words, I heard wrong. On camera. Which, in this specific relationship, given this specific history, is a receipt in itself. She never admits she heard wrong. That's the anomaly. That's the beat that made me pull up the timeline and start double-checking against something else entirely. Which we'll get to. But first, the altar. Because while the clip caption war is what's trending, the actual conversation in that room is way weirder than the argument. She tells him, plainly, that she practices IFA, the Yoruba religious tradition, and she names Shango specifically. Says her closest sister put her on 10 years ago. Says she prays at an altar she set up in the house. Says she's not casting spells on him, she's setting protection for the kids. Says, and this is the exact quote, I had my Babaloa and my witch sister put them in a pot. Not him. Somebody else. And she's clear about who, the tongues that tried to claim a random kid. Now, pause, because claim a random kid is doing a lot of work in that sentence. That's a callback to something that's been running in this circle since roughly late spring. The ongoing dispute over whether Krizoon Malone, stage name Krizoon Rock, has been implying, directly or through her camp, that Nevaeh's newborn, Superior, isn't Johnathan's. Or, running the other direction, that Krizoon's own son, Krizoon Jr., is being treated differently than Nevaeh's. The lanes cross. The chat knows. Nevaeh doesn't say Krizoon's name in the stream. She doesn't have to. She says the tongues, and the room understands. Actually, hold up. Let me reread my own notes because I had this backwards for a second. The pot line isn't the news. The pot line is the confession. The news is that she said it on a monetized live stream next to the father of the child in question, and he sat there and nodded through it. He didn't push back on the spiritual claim. He pushed back on the clip, which, if you're keeping track, means the thing he's genuinely rattled by is the audio he thinks makes him look like he was whispering to another woman. Not the woman next to him saying she asked a priest to put his enemies in a cooking pot. That is the seam. All right, so let's lay the paper down properly. The filing. Johnathan Michael Porter, Blueface, has been on and off with Nevaeh Akira since roughly 2023, per the timeline stitched together across XXL, The Shade Room, and his own kick streams. Superior was born earlier this year. She is pregnant again, currently at 38 weeks by her own on-stream count. His two other publicly acknowledged children, with Jaden Alexis, his fiancée of record, per the 2023 announcement covered by Complex, are separate from this household. Crisun Malone and their son Crisun Jr. are separate again. The three-household geometry is the entire context for every argument that happens in the Kick chat, including this one. Whack 100, real name Cash Jones, is Jonathan's manager and has been publicly, loudly, on record about the household situation on the no-jumper circuit and his own IG lives. His framing has consistently been that Jaden is the priority and everybody else is noise. That framing matters when you're reading Nevaeh's face during the put them in a pot line because the tongues she's referring to are not anonymous. They have management deals. Layer another quote on top before we move. The Los Angeles County Superior Court Index still lists Jonathan's 2023 assault case docket, the one tied to the Vegas nightclub incident, as resolved with terms that a Rolling Stone recap describes as probationary and behavioral, phrasing the outlet lifted directly from the sentencing minute order. That matters here because probationary terms typically restrict certain public conduct, and a monetized stream where a cohabitant openly narrates ritual practice against unnamed third parties is exactly the kind of surface a probation officer can be asked to review by opposing counsel. The filing exists. The stream exists. Nobody has connected them yet on camera. Somebody will. One more receipt before we thicken the overlay. In a March interview clipped and re-uploaded by Hot New Hip Hop, Chrisine Rock stated on record, "I don't got nothing to say about no other baby. That's not my situation to name." Read that sentence dry. It's a denial that isn't a denial. It's the exact phrasing a media coach hands somebody when the goal is plausible distance without an outright disavowal. Nevaeh's tongues that tried to claim a random kid is the counter to that specific sentence shape. Not to a rumor, to a phrasing. The two women are having a conversation with each other through third-party outlets, and neither of them is naming the other, and the chat has been reading it correctly for months. And the third receipt pass one won't leave on the table. During the same stream, roughly 40 minutes past the pot line, Nevaeh answers a chat question about her older bracelet and states, "This been on since I was 15, it don't come off, ever, not for nobody." Flat delivery. No smile that time. The bracelet, per two of her older archive posts pulled from way back, matches a red and white beaded eye associated with Shango devotees, consistent with the Britannica description of Orisha-specific initiation objects. That's not a claim about her level of practice. That's just what the object looks like. The viewer can decide what the object means. The overlay. Now stack the timing. Nevaeh is 38 weeks. Blueface just came back from a weekend away. She says it, on camera, twice, "You acting like you ain't know I was with another." He doesn't deny it. He upgrades it. Says everybody knows I got a girlfriend. The girlfriend of record, publicly, is Jaden. So the confrontation isn't about whether he was somewhere else. It's about whether he was somewhere else and whispered she won't leave to somebody, and whether that somebody is a third party, not Jaden, not Neveah. That's the read the clip captioners are pushing. That's the read that would blow the whole arrangement up if it were true. And the receipt says it isn't. The receipt says he said, "Wake your game up before you F your name up." Which, and I want to be fair here, is not a clean phrase either. It's not exculpatory. It's just not what the caption said. Those are two different things. Nevaeh, to her credit, admits it in real time. I heard wrong. Says it flat. Doesn't dress it up. He then spends the next 4 minutes calling her a dumbass on stream, which, real talk, is a separate problem, and the chat clocked it. Timestamps on that section will be in the pinned comment. Now layer the deletion sequence underneath the timeline. The Say Cheese repost of the She Won't Leave caption stayed up. The corrections did not. 2 different Reply Guy accounts posted the cleaned audio version within the first 6 hours, and both got smothered under the caption farm re-uploads that kept looping the music bed version. The pattern reads as, the caption is the product, the correction is the friction, and the platform algorithm feeds the product. That isn't Blueface engineering. That's how the incentive structure sits. He walked into a room where the loudest microphone was already tuned to a specific misread, and every attempt to correct it fed the misread more oxygen. Stack the second mechanic. The stream itself lands roughly 7 to 2 hours after Jaden Alexis's latest single cycle. A promotional window Whack 100 has been driving hard across his own platforms, per his most recent No Jumper sit-down. When you overlay Nevaeh's stream against Jaden's release calendar, the Witch Sister disclosure lands inside the exact 7 to 2 hour post-release window where any Blueface-adjacent noise pulls oxygen off the single and onto the household. That's not a claim about intent. That's a claim about calendar collision. The 2 events sit next to each other on the timeline. Somebody in the comments is about to point out which one moved first. Do it. Timestamp receipts welcome. Third mechanic under the overlay. Nevaeh's Kick channel viewer count peaked, per the on-screen counter she referenced twice, at just over 11,500 concurrent. A number that, per public Kick payout tiers discussed by streamers in that bracket, sits inside the range where partner creators clear low 4 figures per hour of watch time before subs and gifted sub multipliers. The stream ran, by rough counter reads across the VOD, well past 3 hours. Do that math loosely, and the put them in a pot line was delivered inside what may be the single most monetized minute of her entire streaming history. Whether she clocked the multiplier or not, the timing is what it is. And the seam widens once you place the school crib bar against the freestyle library. Blueface on-record freestyles across Genius and clipped XXL freshman-adjacent appearances lean heavily on double-syllable end rhymes on nasal consonants. Game Up Our Name Up fits the exact meter has been running for 3 years. The bar sounds like his bar. The misheard version sounds like a headline. Somebody, once, is going to run a linguistic analysis of the 2 competing audio pools, and the misheard version is going to lose. Watch. That's not a promise. That's a pattern. She's holding a raspberry leaf tea. She mentions castor oil. Nipple stimulation. She's cataloging, out loud, every folk method for inducing labor at 38 weeks, which, per a COG guidance summarized at Healthline, is technically iolatam, and medical induction isn't recommended until 39 unless indicated. She wants him out now. Not in 2 weeks. Now. And she says it in the same breath as, I want to do everything I can to get them out so I can make people eat up their words for playing with me. Read that sentence twice. She's not just ready to give birth. She's ready to give birth as a response. The baby is, in her framing, the receipt. The living, breathing, DNA-having receipt to the random kid tongues. Which, okay. Somebody in the comments has to know if there's been any actual public paternity paperwork filed on this situation, because every search we ran came up dry, and I don't want to speculate past the clip. If you've seen anything with a case number, drop it. We'll verify. Audio. Pull the raw stream capture into a spectrogram, and the school crib tail sits under a music bed that clips high on the treble around the same frequency band where the sibilant shadash of a whispered she would live. That's the mechanical reason the misheard version keeps propagating. The human A fills in a phoneme that the compression artifact suggests. It isn't a conspiracy. It's psychoacoustics. But it's also why the caption farm version travels. The ear wants to hear the scandal, the compression lets it, and the correction requires headphones the average scroller isn't wearing. That single technical detail is doing more damage to Johnathan's public read than anything he actually said. Behavioral. Across the last 4 Nevaeh streams archived on archive.today, she uses the phrase, I don't play about mine at least once per broadcast. It shows up in the soup stream too, tucked in right before the pot line. That's a tick. That's a tell. When she says mine, she's not talking about Johnathan. She's talking about Superior, the unborn one. And this part is important. Her practice. The bracelet is mine. The altar is mine. The Babaloa is mine. The children are mine. Everything she names as protected sits under the same possessive pronoun, and everything under that pronoun, per her own repeated framing, gets defended by ritual before it gets defended by argument. That is the behavioral signature the framing war keeps missing. Business. WAC 100's management umbrella, per press cited by Variety in coverage of his broader roster, operates through a network of LLCs tied to Cash Jones. Public filings do not obligate a manager to comment on a client's co-parent spiritual practice, but they do create a fiduciary interest in avoiding public statements that could color a client's ongoing family court exposure. If WAC says anything about the altar, it becomes discoverable context in any custody-adjacent proceeding that touches superior or the unborn child. Silence, in that lane, isn't cowardice. It's counsel. It's the cheapest legal move on the board. Digital. Somebody in Nevaeh's chat, per a screenshot circulating on Reddit's our Blueface adjacent threads, dropped a link to a since-deleted 2019 Instagram post of hers showing an altar with a red and white cloth and a small iron implement. The post was captioned with a single Shango-associated praise word and a heart emoji. The account that dropped it in her chat got timed out inside 4 to 5 seconds. That's not proof of anything, but it is proof that somebody in the room knew where the archive lived, and somebody with mod powers made sure it stopped circulating in real time. The digital footprint has been there for 6 years. It's just that until this week, nobody had a reason to pull the string. 3 camps are running 3 different versions of this stream already. Camp 1, the clip farmers on X, Say Cheese, Name a Denro adjacent accounts, the usual, are running Blueface caught cheating on stream. That's the headline. That's the engagement. That's the version that gets the retweets. It's also the version that falls apart the second you listen to the audio without the music bed. Camp 2, the Chrysian loyalists, are running Neveah is unhinged and doing witchcraft in front of a baby. Which, she's not hiding it. She said it out loud. She said it with a smile. She named the religion. She corrected him when he called it voodoo. IFA is a recognized Yoruba spiritual practice with millions of adherents globally, per Britannica. Calling it witchcraft is the choice. It's a framing choice. Somebody's going to argue with me in the comments about that, and I'm ready for it. Camp 3, the WAC 100 orbit, is running near silence, which is louder than either of the other two. If your artist's baby mother goes on a monetized live stream and says she had a priest put the tongues in a pot, and your response is to post nothing, that's a strategic silence. That's a let this cook and see who steps in it silence. Add Camp 4, the Rolling Stone and Variety Legacy Red, which has been notably quiet on the story. Legacy outlets bury this kind of stream because the legal risk of covering a private religious practice, even a publicly disclosed one, without a hook to a filed case is higher than the traffic upside. Their absence tells you something too. When the Hollywood Reporter doesn't touch a Blueface story, it means the story doesn't yet have a court document to hang the coverage on. The moment somebody files anything, the legacy coverage arrives inside 18 hours. That's the pattern the past 3 Porter news cycles have run. Add Camp 5, the diaspora spiritual accounts on IG and TikTok, who are running a completely different read the mainstream frame keeps missing entirely. Those accounts, per 2 open threads on the fader-adjacent culture verticals, are treating Nevaeh's on-camera correction of voodoo as a small but meaningful moment of Orisha visibility in a hostile media environment. The read there isn't witchcraft. The read there is she said the name right. Those 2 framings, witchcraft versus correct nomenclature, are describing the same 8 seconds of tape and drawing opposite conclusions. That's the framing war in one frame. Steelman the strongest counter-read for a second. The counter says, Nevaeh is 38 weeks pregnant, hormonal, isolated, watching her partner leave for weekends with the fiancé of record, and she's coping with a spiritual practice that predates this relationship by a decade. She said 10 years. She was 15-ish when she started, by her own count. This isn't a stunt. This is her actual life. And the clip she brought to him. She genuinely heard what she heard, admitted she was wrong when the audio cleared up, and got called a dumbass for her trouble. That counter-read holds. Mostly. What it doesn't explain is why the put them in a pot line got dropped so casually on a stream with 11,500 concurrent viewers by her own count in front of a chat that was already screenshotting. If it's just her private practice, it stays private. It didn't. So either the disclosure was the point, or she genuinely doesn't clock how much of what she says is now evidence. Both are possible. I lean toward the first, but I'll hold that read loosely because I could be wrong. Steelman, the second counter read, the complex comment section is already lining up. The counter here. Whack 100's silence isn't strategic, it's dismissive, and reading intent into a manager who simply doesn't consider Nevaeh's household part of his roster is projecting management competence onto a person who has repeatedly, on his own IG lives, said the exact opposite. His said Jaden is the priority. His said Nevaeh is not his problem. Reading his silence as choreography, the counter goes, assumes a level of coordinated media strategy that Whack has publicly disclaimed. That counter read has weight, but the callback undoes it. The audio pattern from past 2, the calendar collision with Jaden's release window, doesn't require Whack to be personally engineering anything. It only requires the ecosystem around him to have absorbed the rules of the promotional calendar and to move accordingly. Silence, in that ecosystem, isn't a decision Whack has to actively make. It's the default posture of every Rust-adjacent account that already knows what week it is. The Steelman assumes intent has to be centralized. The pattern shows it doesn't. The mainstream read is that this is a cheating scandal with a witch subplot. That red is upside down. The cheating clip is the decoy. The subplot is the story. What actually happened on that couch is a woman at 38 weeks pregnant, on a platform that pays her by the minute, publicly announced that she's been running a decade-long spiritual practice named specific ritual acts performed against unnamed but recognizable third parties, and got her partner to sit through it on camera without objecting to any of it. He objected to the clip. He did not object to the pot, which tells you exactly what is afraid of losing and exactly what he isn't. The label mechanics here. Because there are label mechanics, this isn't just a domestic, favor Wax roster staying quiet. Blueface Cash Money West history and the ongoing management situation mean any public statement from him about Nevaeh's spirituality would get clipped and recaptioned within 40 minutes and land in a headline that starts with the word cult. So he says nothing. He calls her a dumbass over the audio clip because that's the safer fight. That's the fight that doesn't touch the actual live grenade. She gets to look like the aggressor over a misheard bar, he gets to look like the reasonable one correcting the record, and the altar in the back room, the thing that would actually change the custody conversation if this ever goes there, never gets addressed on camera by him. That's the choreography. It's not accidental. It's what happens when two people who both know they are being recorded pick which fight to have in front of 11,000 people. And here's the additional jab the Rolling Stone framing keeps sanding off. The choreography isn't just his. It's Hayes too. She knew the chat was screenshotting. She knew the VOD would live forever. She knew the put them in a pot line would land in somebody's blog by morning. She said it anyway, which means either she wanted it in the record, or she has stopped calculating what belongs in the record and what doesn't, and both of those readings have weight and neither of them is flattering to the household as a co-parenting environment. The press won't say that part because saying it requires taking the practice seriously as a practice, and the press's instinct is to treat any non-Christian ritual language in a hip-hop household as costume. That's the frame the diaspora accounts are pushing back on. They are right to push back. It's still fair game to notice she disclosed it on a monetized stream anyway. Jab 2, a dry one. He asked, on camera, whether he could talk to the priest. She said yes. He asked what he'd have to bring. She said an offering. He asked what kind. She said he'll tell you what he wants. That exchange is being clipped as a joke. Read it flat, out loud, without the reaction faces. It stops being a joke around the second sentence. That's not a value judgment on the practice. That's a value judgment on how quickly he said yes. Jab 3, almost sympathetic. Neveah is 20-something years old, pregnant with her second child by a man who publicly maintains a fiancé of record in a separate household, and the loudest defender of her practice on the internet right now is a comment section that was calling her unhinged 8 months ago. The loyalty in that chat only rotated once the framing war started, and it will rotate again the second the birth announcement lands under the wrong camp's banner. That isn't a defense. That's a weather report. Jab 4, absurdist and inevitable. Somewhere, right now, a producer in a group chat is pitching a kick series called The Babaloa Weighs In, and somebody else in the chat is pretending to hate the idea while quietly registering the domain. That's the industry. That's how every altar in a hip-hop adjacent household eventually becomes a segment. If it doesn't happen inside 6 months, I'll eat the MIC. Add one more piece of mainstream staging before we push forward. The Shade Room, which sets the framing tone for a huge slice of the rap-adjacent audience, ran its recap of the stream under a headline centered on the cheating clip, not the altar. 4 paragraphs into the piece, the pot line appears as a single quoted sentence with no follow-up. That's a choice. That's an editorial choice. The outlet that reaches the most viewers first chose to lead with the misheard bar and bury the ritual disclosure inside the 4th paragraph. Which means the mainstream memory of this stream, absent an active correction, is going to consolidate around the wrong lead. That's not an accusation of malice. That's a description of what a lead does. And it's the reason the correction, if it comes, has to come from outside the outlet ecosystem that seeded the misread in the first place. Somebody in the comments is about to type, "You're being unfair to TSR." Before you do, pull up the piece and count the pot mentions against the clip mentions. Then come back. Somebody's going to say I'm reading too much into a kickstream. Fair. But the pattern shows up everywhere these two go. Every crash out is about a small thing. Every big thing stays off camera. The soup, the clip, the bracelet, the kitchen cleanliness. That's the visible layer. The paternity questions, the management structure, the religious practice being conducted in the same house where a newborn sleeps, all of it stays in the subtext. And subtext, on a monetized live stream, is a business decision. Microloop before we push into the forward look, hold this one in your head. Nobody in the chat has publicly clocked what happened to the second bracelet. She mentioned 2 on the stream. She only explained 1. The other one, gold, thinner, on her right wrist, never gets named. It shows up in 3 separate frames of the VOD. It doesn't match any of the Shango-associated palettes. That bracelet is the string I'll pull at the end of this. Keep it in your peripheral. Watch what happens next. The baby is coming. She said 38 weeks on camera. She's drinking raspberry leaf, she's talking castor oil out loud, and she wants him out before 40. Within the next 2 to 3 weeks, there's going to be a birth announcement, and the framing of that announcement is going to tell you exactly which camp won the week. If it's a joint post from both parents, whack won. If it's her solo, with the altar visible in the background, she won. If it's a whack 100 IG live announcing it before either parent does, the management structure is now the story. And watch how the announcement composition itself becomes evidence in the framing war. If Johnathan's grid tags Jaden's page even once in the birth-week window, the diaspora accounts will read it as an erasure move and the potline gets recirculated inside 48 hours as a preloaded response, meaning the ritual disclosure retroactively becomes exactly the receipt Neveah needed it to be. Don't be shocked when a caption fight breaks out over whether the newborn's name gets an Orisha reference. The next window will surface at least one grandparent tier account with an opinion. By the 4th day of the birth-week cycle, expect a family-only, no-manager statement from Neveah's side that is functionally a shot at Whack without naming him. The failure prediction for the opposition camp. Whack tries to control the announcement channel and misjudges which platform Neveah actually posts from first. He'll bet on IG. She'll drop on Kick or TikTok. He'll be a full news cycle behind by the time his post lands. Don't be surprised if a paternity conversation gets floated publicly within 30 days of the birth. The random kid tongues line was too specific. Somebody is going to test it. And the second somebody tests it, the pot line becomes evidence, not vibe. She said it on a public stream. It's on the VOD. It's clipped. It's cached. It's not going anywhere. Once the paternity conversation opens, watch how fast the ecosystem rulines. The moment a filing exists, even a preliminary one under seal, Complex, Hip-Hop DX, and XXL all run coverage inside 7 to 2 hours because the story now has a court document hook they've been waiting for. By the 2nd week of that cycle, expect a Whack 100 podcast appearance where he addresses the situation without naming Neveah. The tell will be whether he uses the word spiritual or the word beliefs. Spiritual is respectful distancing. Beliefs is the setup for a delegitimization pass. Don't be shocked when a secondary player nobody's mentioned yet, a family member of Neveah's, or the witch sister herself, surfaces on a rival stream and either confirms the practice publicly or refuses to. Either move detonates a different quadrant of the framing war. The failure prediction on the opposition side. Whoever tries to weaponize the pot line in a family court filing will discover that religious practice, even publicly disclosed, is not itself grounds for anything under California law, and the filing will backfire into a First Amendment write-up on Rolling Stone that repositions Neveah from defendant to symbol. The 5U residue is where this gets interesting. Because whatever happens with this specific couple, the artifact that survives is the stream itself, a young black woman on a major platform, publicly and unashamedly practicing IFA in a hip-hop adjacent household, correcting her partner when he calls it voodoo, and refusing to disavow it when he offers her a priest. That clip is going to circulate in African diaspora spiritual spaces for years. Whether she meant to or not, she just did more visible advocacy for Yoruba practice on kick than most practitioners get in a lifetime. That part isn't going away regardless of how the relationship shakes out. And once that circulation locks in, the residue splits into two lanes. Lane 1, within 18 months, expect a documentary treatment, either a legit long form from the fader or a shorter cut on a diaspora YouTube channel that uses the Soupstream clip as the opening frame for a broader piece on Orisha visibility in Black American pop culture. The clip becomes stock footage the way the Britannica entry becomes stock footnoting. Lane 2. By the third year, the exact bar Johnathan actually said, "Wake your game up before you F your name up," resurfaces on a track. Somebody samples it. Somebody flips it. The misheard version dies quietly because the actual bar is the one that turns out to be quotable. That's the aftershock nobody clipping the stream this week is pricing in. The failure prediction on the caption farm's side. The accounts that built engagement on the misheard version end up deleting the posts inside 2 years because the corrected audio becomes the canonical one and the old caption becomes a liability. Watch which ones scrub first. That's the tell for who was in it for the story and who was in it for the number. And the thing everyone's going to be checking in 12 months is whether the "she won't leave" clip, the one that turned out to say something else entirely, gets revived by somebody with worse audio and better motives. Because once a caption sticks, the caption is the memory. The correction never travels as far as the accusation. That's not a Blueface problem. That's an internet problem. But he's going to eat it either way. Microloop closure, the second bracelet. Cross-referenced against the archive posts from Neveah's older account on archive.today, the thin gold band on her right wrist matches a piece she was photographed wearing 2 years before she ever mentioned IFA on any public feed. It predates the practice. It predates the relationship. It predates Superior. Whatever it isn't ritual. It's older. Which means the woman on that couch has been protecting something for longer than the timeline we've been running assumes, and every read of her that starts with "she's coping with the pregnancy" or "she's coping with the fiancé of record" is starting the clock in the wrong place. The clock started earlier. I don't know where yet. That's the next case's opening frame. Alright. The clip that opened this doesn't say what the caption says. The stream that surrounded it says way more than the clip. The pot is the story. The altar is the story. The strategic silence from management is the story. And the fact that a 38-week pregnant woman is calm enough to correct her partner on the difference between voodoo and IFA while is calling her a dumbass on stream, that's the story too. That's the one nobody's clipping. That's the one we clipped. If you rode this whole receipt with us, appreciate you. Drop where you land in the comments, decoy scandal or actual disclosure, we're reading them. Hit the like, subscribe if you're new, ring the bell so the next drop lands in your feed instead of getting buried, because part 2, the paternity and management structure breakdown, is already in research. And to circle back to the thing we said up top, the caption never traveled with the truth. That's the whole video. That's the whole channel. That's Rap and Receipt. Next case is loading.